since the incident in which the Philippine Coast Guard ship 9701 collided with Chinese Coast Guard ships in the waters of Sabina Shoal. The situation in the South China Sea has become more tense. In response, China has actively taken actions and begun to make military deployment arrangements to prepare for the next stage of actions. Bloomberg reported that in a South China Sea dynamics report released by the Philippine Navy recently, it was pointed out that China has deployed about 203 various types of ships in multiple offshore areas and key waterways. This is the largest number of ships observed this year, which reflects that under the increasingly tense situation in the South China Sea, China is demonstrating its maritime strength by comprehensively analyzing the latest satellite photos and information from the ship's automatic identification system. It can be known that currently China has at least gathered 42 ships in the waters of Sabina Shoal. These ships include the Navy, Coast Guard, various official ships and a considerable number of fishing vessels. The appearance of tugboats like Ren'ai Ju-116 is particularly eye-catching. However, at the same time, we also note that the Philippine ship 9701 still remains in the waters of Sabina Shoal and shows no intention of leaving. It seems that it is determined to stand off indefinitely with China. So what measures should China take next? At present, the situation of the Philippine Coast Guard ship staying in the waters of Sabina Shoal is not optimistic, and its supplies have been exhausted. Last month, although the Philippine side tried to conduct airdrop supplies by helicopter, the quantity of airdrop PET materials was extremely limited. Moreover, the Philippine side's successive maritime supply operations have been successfully intercepted by China. According to relevant news, the Philippine side has agreed to resume negotiations with China on the South China Sea situation. To a large extent, the Philippine side is likely to hope that China can allow them to supply the ship 9701 and try to turn Sabina Shoal into a situation similar to that of Ren'ai Reef. The Philippines is deliberately trying to occupy Sabina Shoal. The real intention behind it actually still points to Ren'ai Reef. Sabina Shoal is just at a key position between Ren'ai Reef and Palawan Islands. In previous operations, the Philippines' supplies to Ren'ai Reef have all been intercepted by China. After analysis, the Philippine side believes that the reason for the interception of supplies is that the supply route is too long, so it is easy to be discovered by China. Therefore, they wishfully think that as long as a transit station can be established on Sabina Shoal, the voyage can be greatly shortened, and then an unexpected effect can be achieved in actions. This is purely the subjective imagination of the Philippine side. Or it can also be said that they have not correctly recognized China's strong controllability over the situation in the South China Sea at all. It is just an excuse for their improper actions. However, from this kind of thinking of the Philippine side, we can also see that to fundamentally solve the problem of Sabina Shoal, the root still lies in Ren'ai Reef. Looking back, after the Philippine side illegally grounded a ship on Ren'ai Reef, at that time, China's maritime strength was relatively limited, and it was difficult to conduct comprehensive and effective control over the surrounding sea areas. Therefore, an agreement was temporarily reached with the Philippine side. The agreement stipulated that only the Philippine side was allowed to transport supplies, but not allowed to repair and reinforce the grounded ship. However, in recent years, China's maritime strength has developed rapidly, and a large number of Coast Guard and maritime ships have been launched and put into service. To a certain extent, that agreement back then did have a certain impact on China's own actions today. Now, the Philippine ship 9701 is lingering in the waters of Sabina Shoal. The most fundamental motivation is that China has not yet taken tough coercive measures on Ren'ai Reef. This makes the Philippine side have a wrong perception. They think that as long as they tightly hold on to the thigh of the United States, they can form an effective deterrence to China. That's why the Philippine side puts on that robe look like a dead pig not afraid of boiling water. China has always maintained great restraint in order to abide by the agreement. This approach is completely understandable. As the saying goes, a person without integrity cannot stand. However, at some times, perhaps China should also take some tougher measures appropriately. After all, some countries are of the type that if not beaten for 3 days, they will climb onto the roof and remove tiles. As a major country, credit and benevolence are certainly important, but prestige is equally indispensable. Decades of peace have made some forces around seem to gradually forget what a powerful opponent China is. Now that China has deployed 42 ships in Sabina Shoal, when it is time to establish prestige, a decision should be made as soon as possible. The Philippines has been actively preparing for conflicts in the South China Sea recently, and the Navy has even mobilized all its forces. Although it did not name names, it is clearly deterring the People's Liberation Army. According to reports from multiple Philippine media such as the Manila Times on September 7, in view of the increasingly tense situation in the South China Sea, the Philippine Navy held a large-scale maritime military exercise in many important sea areas such as Zambales, Bataan, and the Mindoro Strait. In this exercise, the Philippine Navy can be said to have brought out all its assets. The most advanced ships in its combat ship sequence, the Jose Rizal FF-150 and the Antonio Luna FF-151 guided missile frigates made a grand appearance. You should know that these two modern guided missile frigates are currently the ace forces of the Philippine Navy. In addition, the Ramon Alcaraz PS-16 and the Andres Bonifacio PS-17 large patrol ships also set out one after another. Even the AL-159 Wildcat anti-submarine helicopter that the Philippines has just received in the past few years, and there are only 2 in total in the whole Philippines, has also been put into this exercise. The Philippine Navy highly praised this exercise in its notice, claiming that this operation aims to show the Philippines' powerful advanced maritime capabilities. They carried out live-fire DRI LLS on sea targets with 76mm naval guns and Mk-38 rapid-fire guns and anti-ship missile interception drills and so on in the exercise. Although the Philippines dare not clearly point out who the preset imagined enemy is, everyone is very clear in their hearts. Not only that, the Philippine Navy also carefully organized the night navigation exercise of the combat ship formation in SIC. They carried out patrol missions in tactical formations and conducted radio control exercises. The purpose is to detect and analyze the electromagnetic signals of potential opponents and test the electronic warfare capabilities of the Philippine Naval Fleet, so that the Philippine Navy can establish a comprehensive maritime situation awareness capability on the second day of the exercise. Under the close cooperation of multiple units such as the AL-159 anti-submarine helicopter and the Nevada 395 maritime patrol aircraft, the Philippine Naval Formation jointly implemented an anti-submarine warfare ASW exercise. In this exercise, they deployed towed sonar and also claimed that they located and eliminated the submarine threat. This series of actions by the Philippines is undoubtedly creating tension in the South China Sea region, and the intentions behind it are worthy of deep consideration. And China will certainly firmly defend its national sovereignty and territorial integrity, whether it is live-fire shooting, missile interception, or anti-submarine warfare exercises. This series of exercise subjects are all highly in line with the actual combat background. Under the current highly tense situation in the South China Sea, these actions of the Philippine military undoubtedly expose its conspiracy and intention to confront China by force and even attempt to solve the South China Sea conflict by violent means. However, even so, the Philippine authorities still insist that their exercises are only to prepare for various possible conflicts. Rather ridiculously, even though China clearly knows that the target of the Philippine exercises is itself. The Chinese Navy is not panicked at all. There is no other reason than that the Philippine lineup is really too weak. The Jose Rizal class frigate, prominently displayed by the Philippines this time, is hailed as the ship with the strongest combat effectiveness in the Philippine Navy. But this seemingly powerful guy is actually a modified version of the South Korean Navy's Incheon class frigate, with a displacement of only 2,600 tons. Its most heavyweight shipborne weapon is for Sea-Star SSM-710K Sea-Star anti-ship missiles imported from South Korea. Not to mention the powerful Type 055 and Type 052D. Even the Type 05 for a frigate for 000 tons, which frequently appears everywhere in the world and is so numerous that Chinese military fans are used to it, can deal with it easily. In addition, the Del Pilar class offshore patrol ship, mobilized by the Philippines this time, is actually a second-hand Hamilton class patrol ship. And this Hamilton class patrol ship was built in 1965 and is a veritable antique. The newest one in the hands of the Philippines at present, the Andres Bonifacio, was also launched in 1967. With such an antique that is half a century old, it is no wonder that the Philippines has always dared not take it to confront the Chinese Coast Guard ship 5901 in the South China Sea. After all, if there is really a collision with the Chinese Coast Guard ship at that time, it is really unknown whether the structural strength of this antique can withstand it. The objective gap between the Philippine Navy and the Chinese Navy cannot be unseen by the Filipinos. And although the Marcos Jr. administration knows that the Philippine military strength is simply incomparable to that of China, it still recklessly provokes China to a large extent. This is to show loyalty to the United States in exchange for a greater degree of support and assistance from the United States to the Philippines, making the Philippines a strategic ally of the United States in the Asia-Pacific region. It is precisely because of the support of the United States that the Philippine Navy dares to carry out ant-like challenges to a giant tree, provocations against the People's Liberation Army. Of course, provocation is provocation. Naturally, the Filipinos dare not really take action. Otherwise, think about it. Why don't they dare to conduct exercises near Sabina Shoal?